Good morning and a very warm welcome to this special broadcast brought to you by SABC News. This morning we're coming to you live from the International Convention Center here in Cape Town. This, of course, being where the first Africa ICT Indaba is going to be held. Over the next few days, Africa, the continent of Africa, together with partners from the rest of the world, will be converging here to talk about information and communication technology, how to advance this continent, how to share ideas, how to share resources, to make sure that we create the backbone, the infrastructure backbone for information and communication technology in the continent. Well, without much ado, I'm going to allow us to go inside the plenary, where the plenary is about to kickstart, and that, of course, being where most of the formal, if you like, conversations will be taking place. For now, let's have a look inside at what is going on in there. Well, we are, of course, still waiting for the speakers as well as the facilitators who will be taking care of this very first session of this Indaba that, as I said earlier, is going to take place over the next 4 days. Right now, in a few minutes' time, the mayor, the executive mayor of Cape Town, will be doing the opening remarks. After which the Deputy Minister of Communications will make some introductory remarks as well as introduce this particular session's main speaker, who will be the Minister, the South African Minister of Communications, Ms. Dina Pule, who will chart the way forward, give us a sense of what this gathering is about, what it seeks to do, and what it is that South Africa in particular is putting in place to try and make sure that this becomes a success. That, of course, is going to happen in a few minutes' time.
I was waiting for you to turn around there and say, and they can't come in. I was waiting for you to start tap dancing.
Well, if you've just missed it, we are coming to you live from the International Convention Center in Cape Town. This is where, over the next few days, the communication heads of various African governments, as well as partners from all over the world, will be converging, this being where they are going to have intense discussions about how to take this continent of ours forward, how to build a solid information and communication technology infrastructure for the continent to leapfrog, so to speak, because we have indeed missed a lot over the years and over the decades because of the poverty and colonialization, of course, that meant that the majority of people in this continent are still being shackled by poverty. They still don't have the resources to build the kind of infrastructure that the 21st century requires of any government, that the 21st century requires of any continent. But right now already, in fact, there are sea cables on both sides of the continent being laid out, which are giving hope to a lot of people that, for example, health, we will be able to meet our health needs, we will be able to make our transport needs, our communication needs, but that still requires a lot of investment. It still requires a lot of political leadership, political will even, if you like. It still requires, perhaps more primarily, a lot of partnerships with other people who are way ahead of us as we speak. But all is not lost. A lot of people think we will be able to catch up, we will be able to leapfrog. So because technology is a very dynamic environment, it is the kind of environment where if you think hard enough, if you're able to prioritize, you can still be able to catch up. And that is exactly what African leaders, African entrepreneurs, African business people who are converging here in Cape Town over the next 4 days are hoping to do. We'll be joined in a few minutes by a couple of people who are integrally involved in this initiative, who will be talking to us about some of the things that they will be able to do. And right now we're going to be joined in a few minutes by the Deputy Director General responsible for policy, Mr. Themba Phiri, who is with the Department of Communications. He will be joining us to talk about what the department is doing, how this whole function was put together, and what it is exactly that we as South Africa are hoping to achieve, what it is that as South Africa want the rest of the continent to work with us on, and what it is that our international partners, that we want from our international partners. Mr. Phiri, thank you very much for joining us and welcome to this special broadcast.
Thank you very much, Vuyo.
Well, very briefly, what are we going to be doing over the next 4 days here?
Vuyo, here we are about to open the inaugural ICT Indaba. The ICT Indaba, it's a global international platform of engagement. It is multi-stakeholder in nature. It is a cooperation of business, government, civil society. In essence, we are bringing together the leadership of the African continent, in particular, to prioritize the issues of information communications technology to build the knowledge economy. You will recall that the President, in his State of the Nation address, his SONA was built on building a knowledge economy. This also centered around what the Science and Technology was doing around SKA, but we are also saying, as the Department of Communications, just like the heads of state in 2010 January in the summit in Ethiopia declared ICTs as a priority for development, we are taking that gauntlet forward. We are saying the leadership here can come and understand and discuss at the ministerial forums, which are taking place tomorrow, to debate the issues of international telecommunications regulations. This leadership will also be discussing how best to ensure international communication with respect to undersea cables, which we have seen considerable investment in those areas, wherein we have also observed a large uptake of internet access in Africa.
Okay. Before we get into that detail, what the ministers and the various gurus will be talking about, I want us to start by talking about the person who is in Qumbu in the Eastern Cape, the person who is in Tubatuba or Ngandla. What does this particular gathering mean for them? In other words, what is going to be its significance to them? How is it going to change their lives?
You know, technology has always been shaping our lives. As it is, people in rural villages, Matatiel, wherever, okay, today they are able to transfer their money from one point to another without having to go to a bank. This is the capability of mobile technologies. But we also know that broadcasting services, which in this country we have a significant coverage, people in rural areas will be able to interact with wealth of information available at their disposal using broadcasting digital migration. So digital broadcasting in essence also touches on people's life because they have immediate access to quality broadcasting services in their own languages, programs that focuses on them, issues that are about the local people themselves. So this is one area in which I can say technologies contribute to impact on the lives of the people. Now this gathering, for instance, if I can pick up on this issue of broadcasting digital migration, wherein Africa is expected to conclude that process by 2015, most of our countries have not started. They are busy with policy formulation. They have not adopted the relevant standards for this. In some cases, they don't have even the manufacturing capacity of the digital decoders that are required. So this has a huge impact for this leadership to be able to share experiences on how best this can be done and whether can Africa really do it by that period, because there has been significant delays as well. We also will be discussing here the resolutions of the World Telecommunications Conference, which took place in February, which has dedicated some level of the radio frequency band, okay, to certain technologies, because those technologies they are called the IMTs, International Mobile Technologies, and in the countries we have to discuss: are we going to now take away the broadcasters from that relevant bed and now throw in the telecommunications operators? How do we go about that exactly? And this is one of the most important issues we think we'll be looking at here.
Now, one of the advances, I mean, you've mentioned how it is easy nowadays for people to transfer money. Someone doesn't have to go to some counter or endless counters and encountering all sorts of problems, but they can get their money almost immediately. That's one advancement. You've mentioned television, but as far as television goes, a lot of people say, well, apart from a clearer picture and a better sound quality, what else is there to look forward to in the broadcasting space?
You know, there is an important thing here. Our country is built on a constitutional democracy, which requires equality of treatment of languages. Now, this whole issue of digital broadcasting means, even if I am not in the Eastern Cape where isiXhosa is spoken, and I'm in Mpumalanga, and I want to listen to specifically on television isiXhosa, I'll be able to do so because
at the click of a button.
At the click of a button, because immediately about 18 channels space is actually available to make that information available to anybody. So we think this issue of language diversity in the country is very critical at this point in time, enabled by these technologies we're talking about, because they're able to free up a lot of spectrum. And the economic value of that is insurmountable. If you can think about it, by just simply migrating those services on those bands, you are able to actually provide what we call licensing of a new operator like MTN or Vodacom or any other player who may be new. In that way, you are contributing significantly to the issue of competition. We have here in this country an issue of high cost of communication, an issue which we have benchmarked with many countries like Chile, Mexico, and many other countries, US and everyone else in the OECD countries. It is very clear that we cannot sustain this high cost. So this issue also helps us to try and find new ways of entrenching competition, in particular in the sector.
Well, if our current experience is anything to go by, I mean, you have 3 mobile operators, you have 2 fixed line operators, yet the costs haven't significantly come down in any meaningful way.
Indeed, that is an issue we are taking very forward strongly. You will recall, though, in 2009, there was an initiative to drive that issue further to ensure that we can reduce this cost. At least we were expecting at the end of the glide path, which started in 2010, by 2013, those costs what we call mobile termination rates. So how a call terminates from one network to the other, and what is it that these operators must pay each other. Those costs are expected to come down to something like 73 or 76 cents, which is significantly lower. And
but how are you going to do that? Are you going to do that by regulating, or are you going to do that by introducing more players?
It's a multi-pronged approach. The regulation is already in place with respect to that. We are going to conduct another study through ICASA, which will look into wholesale costs. How do you get wholesale costs, specifically in broadband, to come down? Because right now these costs also inhibit our access or for the people to access broadband services. So by doing that, we're also going to determine what are the policy positions that we must take and what will be the regulatory measures that we have to come with that.
In the meantime, though, while you're still busy working on that, aren't there any sort of significant or effective measures that you can put in place? Is there anything, for example, that a body like the consumer commission can do in the meantime? Because this has been dragging on for a very long time.
No, this has been dragging for a while, and we have this duopoly which is very difficult. But when I read the reports from the Consumer Commission, I believe that they have been having workshops with the mobile operators. They've been looking at the quality of service as well to determine whether these high drop cost levels are they acceptable. Do the mobile operators have liability with regards to that? And we believe that the Consumer Commission is right in pointing to those, because the quality of service is very important. Imagine if you transfer your money and your money doesn't get to the other point. So those are the issues we believe that they have been handling.
Okay, Mr. Piri, thank you very much for your time. Well, Mr. Piri is, of course, the Deputy Director General in the Department of Communications here in South Africa. For now, it's time to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back right after this. Yeah. Paul? He's doing. Dr. Harold
Vessel.
Vessel.
I'm the skills environment.
Okay. We're in the department.
Department, yes, but head of the e-skills institute.
Oh, okay. But you're the Deputy Director General of the department.
Responsible for the e-skills institute.
Okay. Welcome back. You're watching a live special broadcast. We're coming to you from the International Convention Center in Cape Town. This, of course, being where over the next 4 days, representatives of governments, of the private sector, of non-governmental organizations all over the continent, from South Africa right through to Egypt, will be converging here to talk about information and communication technology, how to build infrastructure, the kind of infrastructure that's going to allow this continent to move ahead over the next few years and decades. Well, joining me now is Dr. Harold Vesso, who is with the Deputy Director General in the Department of Communications here in South Africa. Welcome to this special broadcast.
Good morning.
Well, you are dealing with skills. Let's start with, in South Africa, what is the level? Do we have the requisite skills to take this ICT revolution, as it were, forward?
Well, actually not. In general, I think we know that our educational system at this point in time does not deliver the requisite skills to build a knowledge economy. I think when we talk about ICT, we normally think about it in technology terms. And we forget that once you have the technology, you have to get the people to use the technology. And in order to use ICTs effectively and efficiently, you need to have the skills. So we also know that we're living in an e-world. We talk about e-government, e-commerce, e-business, and so forth, e-health, e-education. And within that world, you need e-skills. And that is why the department has decided 2 or 3 years ago to establish what we call the e-Skills Institute that will try and be the facilitator and the catalyst for the new skills that the knowledge economy will need here and in Africa generally.
Now, what is the intake a year, and what are the sort of things that people who are participating in the Institute's programs do?
Well, we, as I've said, we're in the process of establishing this institute. We will really go live in 2013, the next year. But for the past year or so, we have collaborated with universities, and we also try to get universities to change their curriculum. We have calculated that, according to the Vision 2030 in South Africa, we need to be an e-literate society by 2030. In order for us to do that, we need to impact over the next 5 years about 10 million people in this country alone at different levels, from your PhD student right down to communities, in order for our society to utilize the emerging new economies or the new technologies that we're facing with.
Now, who else is the Institute working with? I mean, there are CETAs, there are further education training colleges, there are universities, as you mentioned, but there's also high schools. So how are you working with the other people who are in the education space to make sure that we don't work, as we often criticize for, in silos?
Yes, and that is very, very important. In order for us to impact 10 million people, there's no way that one institution can do that. So we work very closely with the Department of Education, Basic Education, other government departments, the private sector. We even have an MOU with the United Nations Development Program. We're working with international universities and organizations. So we really try to be cutting edge, and I think, in an environment like ours, you can leapfrog, so you don't need to reinvent the wheel. So collaboration with other institutions are very important. At the moment, the idea is that we have to have an institution in each province in South Africa. We already have what we call knowledge production hubs in 7 provinces, in association with key universities in those provinces. So we're trying to collaborate and utilize existing resources. I think that's very important, that we don't duplicate it, we don't overlap, but have a focus on e-skilling the nation.
What do you foresee as being perhaps your biggest stumbling block going forward?
Well, the biggest stumbling block, I think, is to get people, at all levels to realize that without collaboration and without working together, we will not achieve. So that is, up till now, it was a major effort, to get people to understand that what we need are skills for the emerging knowledge economy, and not only technology skills, but also skills about the business, about the political economy, people skills like teamwork, and to bring in all the new technologies that we have, social media and so on. It's now all about mobile and broadband. So how do you skill people to effectively use mobile technology and broadband? One area that we're facing of critical importance is content development. How do you skill people to deliver the content for the channels that will become available? So we need to look at many things, in order to get our people skilled, for them to become employable, but also to create employment.
Now, to the student or the person who left school a year ago or 2 years ago who remains unemployed, because we have a lot of those in our country, and who's keen to learn and get into the ICT space, how do they get in touch with your institute? How do they even explore whether in fact it's the sort of thing that they should even be interested in or in getting involved in?
Yes, they can contact the department, the eSkills Institute, and they will get to me. And I think what's also very important is also the reskilling and upskilling of students. Many students have degree and they're actually unemployable. And I think what people must realize, that a study has indicated recently that by 2014, 90% of the jobs that will become available in Europe will require e-skills. So it's a skilling of people across different sectors.
Dr. Veso, thank you very much for joining us this morning, and good luck with your program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, that was Dr. Veso, who is the Deputy Director General in the Department of Communications. He is particularly responsible for skills. Time to take another commercial break. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back. You're watching a live broadcast. This morning we're coming to you from the International Convention Center in Cape Town. This is where over the next few days representatives of governments, of the private sector, of non-governmental and community-based organizations are converging to discuss information and communication technology, how Africa can actually leapfrog and take advantage of existing technologies to move the country forward. Of course, as you all know, there's usually issues of money. Do we have the money available to get these technologies? Do we have the people to actually take these technologies forward for us on behalf of the continent? But also, do we have the right partners from all over the world who can actually share experiences with us, but also share resources, which, as you know, over the years, the hundreds of years of colonialism and the looting that came with that, we've become a desperate continent in many ways, but we've been trying to address that with a bit of political will, with a bit of creativity. We can actually move forward. Everyone is convinced of that, but it is going to take a long time. So what's going to happen here over the next few days is these people coming together to say, in the space of information and communication technology, how do we move forward? Well, joining me now is Dr. Chris Kabwato, who is from the Rhodes University's Department or School of Journalism. He's also involved in a project called Highway Africa. Dr. Kabwato, thank you very much for joining us and welcome.
Thanks so much thanks for having me.
What are you doing here?
I'm here because this is, I think, a seminar event. The holding of this ICT Indaba, I think, is an idea whose time is long overdue. I think there's now a clear recognition of the role of ICT in the development of our societies. Just the reports that have come out in the recent weeks that the internet economy in South Africa contributes 2% of the GDP of the country. So you cannot miss an event of this nature. I think this is a critical event.
Now, you've been involved with your project, Highway Africa, for a good number of years now. How do how do people in their respective corners what do they do that you think can feed onto or can take advantage of what is being contemplated here, which is going to take place over the next few days? In other words, what are you coming up with from the experiences you've had of convening Highway Africa? What are you bringing from that process, which is going to help what is going to happen here over the next 4 days?
Yeah, my entry point into this Indaba is actually coming from journalism and the media. As you know, the classical role of journalism and media is inform, educate, and entertain. But our role is that media has got to be a stakeholder in a conference of this nature. They've got to be the ones that begin to disseminate key information around what this ICT is all about, this information communication technologies are doing. So we need to be here in order to begin to assimilate, digest the kind of resolutions that are coming out here and spread them out to different constituencies. But also, more and more, it's about digital literacy. We need to bring our people on board. One of the challenges that we have, Vuyo, is that the digital divide follows other divides, rural, urban, gender, so women and men. They follow all those kinds of rich and poor, as it were. Now, ourselves as the media is to really say, how do we ensure that the greatest number of people are able to participate, especially in the digital economy, to be online and to be able to use these tools that are available.
I'm glad you're mentioning that, because the reason I framed my question like that is because I think out there's an assumption that this is a government function, that government just simply brought in whoever it could convince to come over. In other words, without thinking that there is in fact a stake for everybody. In other words, people should take it or should have taken it upon themselves to want to be part of this conversation.
I think this is not a government meeting. What it is that the policymakers are key, but you find that the private sector is well represented here. There will be civil society and all that. This is a multi-stakeholder meeting that has been convened, and I would like to applaud the Department of Communications for doing that. But the key thing is really the infrastructure that is to be laid or rolled out benefits everybody within the country and across Africa. All of a sudden, we recognize that everybody has got a mobile phone. The internet mobile penetration in South Africa is over 150%. What does that really mean? One of the key findings is that more and more Africans are going to access the internet for the first time in their lives, not on a computer, but on their mobile phone. But when they begin to do that, Vuyo, what is going to happen? They can do their businesses. They can run their small, medium enterprises. They can do a whole lot of things, whether it's they're studying or whatever it is. It changes. It's a game changer. Mobile and other internet-related technologies are game changers. And that's why, for me, it is important that the message goes across to the rest of South Africa.
Now, you coming from a university, a lot of graduates remain unemployed. How do you think a gathering like this is going to help those those thousands of graduates who are staying at home or have to take little jobs that have nothing to do with what they have been trained for?
I think one of the key things is really around digital literacy. Let's give an example. A few weeks ago, the Department of Trade and Industry, in conjunction with Google South Africa, launched what they called Hoza Online. Okay, now on that, they already have maybe over 40,000 small businesses that are online. For the first time, have got a website. Now, I was looking at one case of a Western Cape woman who used to who runs a bakery and used to do about 4 orders a month. Now does 4 orders a week, simply on the basis of having a website and a presence online, as it were. Now, for me, that's a success story. All those other young people that are out there, when we begin to bring them into the digital economy, Vuyo, things will change. But we also have got to go back to the fundamentals, Vuyo, which is sort out our education system. Mathematics and science are key, because the way that the United States has developed, they've got this area called Silicon Valley that has given us our Facebooks and Google, is because they invested in that. And maths and science become critical, that we give our young people the opportunity to then move into programming and all those other related facets of the internet economy. That, for me, is quite key. And I think the department is already doing something with its eSkills Academy. It's a good start.
Just had a conversation with them now. Dr. Chris Kabato, thank you very much for joining us. Well, Dr. Chris Kabato is from the Department of Journalism at Rhodes University in Grahamstown. If you've just joined us, you're watching a live broadcast coming to you from the International Convention Center in Cape Town, this being where the ICT Indaba, the first in Africa, is taking place. Don't go away. We'll be back right after this. Did you find somebody?
That's what I'm doing.